So I was working on a video to show you guys how I do this finish on curly maple because it's a really super easy process and it's kind of foolproof. But I forgot to record any bit of it when I was doing the legs for my son's desk. So I was planing the top, which is also curly maple, and then I was going to record that. So look for that for the next video. But while I was planing the top, my planer decided to crap the bed. So it ended up spinning a bearing. It's all gnarly looking. And it just seized right up. So, but I wanted to take this opportunity to share a couple things. You know, a lot of woodworkers don't necessarily think about like the machine shop side of things when they go to like repair equipment. And being I used to work in manufacturing, I figured I'd share a couple tips that I really liked over the years. But like these longer cap screws or machine screws tend to have a finer thread, and a lot of times you got to thread through a lot. The first thing is when you're going to put them in, if it's your standard left-hand thread, back up counterclockwise or anti-clockwise once or twice, and you'll be able to hear a click. And that'll be where that kind of incline plane, that radial incline plane, meshes, you know what I mean? It meshes in itself with the socket, essentially. So you're a much less likelihood of cross-threading it. A lot of people, you know, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, so they just want to tighten it right away. It'll behoove you to just go counterclockwise and listen for it. Now, granted, I'm pushing a little bit extra hard so you get that audible click, but that's that incline, like I said, that radial incline plane on that screw just coming to mesh where it starts and it's seating. So now you know that that's exactly, if you change your direction and now tighten it up, you get a much less likely chance to cross-thread that. Tip within a tip, and this is not a sponsored video, so get off my channel with that BS, but I would let you know if I'm getting paid to use the tools I regularly use. But these T-handles are really nice. If you find the cheap T-handles and it's just like a plastic molded on the injection molded, or the actual Allen or Hex key is just kind of bent over, those aren't as nice because a lot of times on these longer, like I said, machine screws, you don't necessarily want to use a drill or anything because you might get a little piece of metal in there or a little piece of, wood, because all this grease on here is making a lot of sawdust stick to this. So you want to have a tactile feel to your hand when you're, trying to screw these in, right? So a nicer set, and I'll leave links to these down in the description, but again, not sponsored. It's just a brand that I've been using for years and I like. It's got a solid, steel handle that's welded, so it acts as a flywheel. In fact, some of the larger sizes, give you an idea, that's just, so I'm getting kind of caught up here and trying to explain this, but if it's sitting there and you're winding her in and it just stops, that'll give you that feel of, hey, let's back it out, let's see if the threads need to be chased out or something like that, rather than using a drill. And then you're not sitting there with like an folding Allen key thing, sitting there doing it 1,000 times on these long bolts. So for anyone that's working around any type of screws like machine screws, see that flywheel does a real nice job. Anyways, I was just buttoning the planer back up, so I figured I'd share a couple things about what's going on in the shop, because I know woodworkers don't always think about stuff like that. And all right, one last one for the cheap seats before I go. When you're reinstalling pulleys, and removing pulleys is a different matter altogether, but I'm not going to put this pulley back on just to show you how to remove it. You can use one of these pullers. They're available online, relatively cheap. Like I said, links all down in the description, but they do a relatively good job. But nobody ever really talks about reinstalling the pulley, because you don't want to necessarily be banging on this outer lip, and this is just either a pot metal or aluminum. So let me just slide her on there. I got to make sure I line up my keyway. But I know it's a little bit snug, and like I said, you don't want to be banging on this outer side. So a little socket. An old mechanic friend of mine taught me that years ago, and this should just require a couple little light taps. You could hear the tone change, so you know it's seated properly. I come back and I throw my nut on there, and then we're all good to go. So, and I just remembered actually this was left-handed threads, because at first I thought maybe I narfed the end of this because I actually had to pound. This is the cutter head itself, and I had to pound it out. But no, I actually used a wooden block before, so it wasn't all narfed up, but it was just left-handed threads. So something else to keep in mind. So there you go. Well, that should conclude it. Awesome. You guys get some time out in the shop. Hopefully that these little, fly-by-night videos are doing you guys some justice. picking up something along the way. Either way, later.